Welcome to The Explainer. Today we are diving into something pretty wild, a theory that tries to bring physics and consciousness together. It's a mouthful. It's called the Conscious Agent Network Unification Theory, or CANU for short. And let me tell you, it suggests that reality itself is built on something we've just completely overlooked.
So let's just start with the question at the very heart of all this. It's a question that, if you take it seriously, flips everything we think we know about the universe completely on its head. What if experience itself, not matter, is the primal stuff of existence?
Okay, so you might be thinking, why on earth would anyone propose an idea that's so out there? Well, to get that, you have to look at the state of modern science. You have to look at the deep, deep cracks and the really big, unsolved puzzles that are sitting right at the foundation.
I mean, think about it. Our current theories, they are incredibly powerful, but they leave these huge questions just hanging. Physics can tell you every last detail about what your brain is made of, but it has absolutely nothing to say about why it feels like something to be you. It can describe quantum probabilities with perfect math, but it can't explain why the simple act of us looking at something seems to force one single outcome out of a whole cloud of possibilities. You see, these aren't small details. These are fundamental gaps in our understanding. It's like a giant piece of the puzzle is just gone.
So what's CANU's solution? Well, it doesn't just try to patch up the holes. It says, we've been looking at the entire blueprint upside down this whole time. It's proposing a completely new foundation for reality.
For hundreds of years, the standard way of thinking has been pretty straightforward, right? You start with dead, mindless stuff, matter. You arrange that matter in a super complex way, like, a human brain, and then boom, somehow out of all that complexity, the light of consciousness just flicks on.
But CANU flips that script completely. It says, no, consciousness isn't the thing that comes at the end. It's the starting ingredient. It's the fundamental thing. And what we call solid matter, what we call particles and physical laws, all of that emerges from consciousness.
And here it is. This is the core claim, the central idea of the whole theory. It's a really bold statement, isn't it? That the universe isn't a collection of objects, but a vast network of subjects. A kind of society of primitive minds all interacting with each other.
So what in the world is a conscious agent? Well, don't think of a person or even an animal. Think much, much simpler. It's a basic, fundamental unit of awareness that just has three simple abilities. It has some kind of internal subjective experience, it can perceive what the agents around it are doing, and they can choose what to do next.
Okay, so let's get into the mechanics here. If the entire universe is just made of these simple little conscious agents, how do you get, everything else? How do you get stars and galaxies and us from a network of tiny minds? How do you build space-time?
The idea is that these agents build reality from the bottom up. The best analogy is probably a huge social network. In this view, space-time isn't some pre-existing box that everything sits inside. No, the network of agents is space-time. The distance between two agents is just a measure of how much information they're exchanging. And a particle, like an electron, it's just a stable, repeating pattern of interaction in the network. Think of it like a viral meme that just keeps going and going, forever.
And when you look at it this way, all the weirdness of quantum mechanics starts to look different. For instance, the wave function of an electron isn't some physical smear of probability. It's the agent's beliefs about what its neighbors might do. And that spooky action at a distance, entanglement, that just becomes two agents making decisions that are linked together. All of a sudden, the quantum world starts to look a lot less like weird physics and a lot more like, sociology.
Right. Now this is where things get really interesting. Because this is where we go from really mind-bending philosophy to actual hard science. A theory is only good if you can test it. And the people behind CANU say, yes, we absolutely can. They believe it's not just a cool story, but something we can actually put to the test in a lab.
And this is the million-dollar question, isn't it? How do you even begin to test for a conscious universe? It sounds impossible. But this is where the theory gets really specific and makes some incredibly bold predictions about how consciousness should and must interact with the physical world.
So prediction number one is a direct shot at the idea of an objective reality. In normal physics, the person doing the experiment is just a bystander. But CANU says, no, the observer is an active participant, which means the quality of your attention,
How focused you are, how distracted you are, could literally change the outcome of a quantum experiment.
So here's how you'd actually test it. First, you'd need some way to measure or quantify the level of an observer's consciousness. Then, you'd have people with different levels, say someone who's tired and drowsy versus someone who's in a state of intense meditative focus, run the same quantum experiment over and over again. The prediction is that the statistics of the outcomes will be just slightly but measurably different. The effect would probably be tiny, but it should be there, and it should be consistent.
The second prediction is, if you can believe it, even wilder. If consciousness and space-time are really just two sides of the same coin, then a highly focused, highly coherent field of consciousness should actually create a tiny, measurable ripple in space-time itself, in gravity.
And yeah, this sounds like science fiction, but it's also potentially testable. The idea would be to take our most sensitive gravitational detectors, the same ones we use to listen for colliding black holes, and aim them at, say, a huge group of people in synchronized, deep meditation. You'd then scan for tiny little gravitational blips that have no other physical cause, but that line up perfectly with their shared moments of high mental focus.
So, let's just step back and think about the implications here. If any of these experiments came back positive, I mean, we're not just talking about a Nobel Prize. We're talking about a fundamental shift in our view of the universe and our place in it.
When you put CANU side by side with the other big theories of everything, you really see what makes it different. String theory, loop quantum gravity. They're beautiful, the math is elegant, but they're incredibly hard to test. And maybe more importantly, they have nothing to say about consciousness. CANU's big promise is that it takes the problem of our own subjective experience head-on, and it gives us a way to actually check its homework.
So what's the big takeaway here? It's really about this massive change in perspective. Moving from a universe made of objects to a universe made of subjects. It reframes physical laws not as rigid rules, but as cosmic habits. And it sees matter as the physical manifestation of this huge, underlying network of conscious agents. And crucially, it's an idea that actually invites scientists to try and prove it wrong.
And we'll just end on this one final provocative thought. Because proving a theory like this wouldn't just rewrite our physics textbooks. If it turns out we live in a fundamentally conscious universe, what does that mean for us? It could change our ethics, our philosophy, our entire relationship with reality. It suggests that we're not just living in the cosmos, we are the cosmos, becoming aware of itself.